everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at the DRF Sunday race of the day. It is the Queens County Stakes at Aqueduct, going the 9 furlong distance. And Mike, drew a pretty interesting field of 11 runners for this race, but clearly the horse to beat is the number 7 Law Professor, who actually won this race almost a couple of years ago, back in early 2023, looking to get back into the Queens County winner's circle on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, he just loves Aqueduct, this horse. When they ship him out of town, he doesn't seem like he's quite the same, but he loves Aqueduct. This distance is fine for him. He's got tactical speed. Came off the layoff last time, David, I thought, with a really strong performance. He's going to be pretty hard for this field to beat.
Yeah, it's a pretty competitive affair, but he's definitely the starting point in the race. And let's take a look at where Law Professor might be placed in the early stages of this Queens County based on the Timeform US pace projector, and shown right there in mid-pack. But this is a really versatile horse who can pull whatever kind of trip the jockey wants based on the pace scenario. He's been effective racing up close to the pace, also coming from a little further back. And it does feel like there is a fair amount of speed signed on in here. 3 runners shown across the track up front with a fast pace predicted by Timeform US. Phileas Fogg, a horse that I think has to go forward from his inside post position. And the connection's probably a little upset that he's not running on the Friday card at Aqueduct, because we're recording this on Friday and there's a huge rail bias taking place. We'll see if that's still the case on Sunday.
Yeah, I got a couple of days to get that straightened out, but if they don't, the 4 is going to be pretty tough. And he's a fast horse. I thought he ran particularly well in his most recent start, David. I can't say that I'm thrilled. Now they're going to, I understand why you want to step him up in class, because his 2 most recent starts on dirt, they're both really good. They were also 3 months ago. I don't know if I love that, but he's a fast horse. He should be on the lead in here. And I guess the 8, unlimited potential. If they're going to run him here, I guess they just have to go and see what happens.
Yeah, with the field this size and some pace in here, it does feel like they could be moving up front. Let's go through the field in post position order, beginning with the number 1 Mazmac. And with this being the Sunday race of the day, you can head on over to the race of the day event page and handicap along with us with DRF Formulator PPs. And Mike, the number 1 Mazmac, we'll take a look at his most recent start when he was a first level allowance winner for Rick Dutrow. Got the job done this day from a wide post, going wide every step of the way, but that didn't deter him at all. He's able to come on through between horses and get the victory. I wondered if it was the turn back to one-turn racing that really got this horse going over the summertime into the fall. And I'm a little concerned about him now stretching all the way out to the 1.125 miles, even recognizing that he is in good form right now.
Yeah, fair to wonder if he really does want to stretch out. I look at his pedigree. It seems it's a little more one-turny than it is, 2-turn routes. But this horse, all 3 starts for Dutrow, they are good. And I guess if you want to go back and look at the two-turn races last year, at least in the last one about a year ago at Oakland, did not get a good trip in that race and was probably going to be a lot closer at the end. We'll see. I like his last 2 races quite a bit. This is a tough spot for him, and he's not a great price on the morning line.
No, it's been unwise to dismiss too much coming out of the Rick Dutrow barn, but this is a big step up in class. The number 2 is Instant Coffee, a horse who attracted quite a bit of buzz on the Kentucky Derby trail going back to the early part of 2023, went the wrong way for the Brad Cox barn, then tried a few different stables, ultimately has wound up with Chad Summers now, and took him a couple starts to get back into the swing of things for the Summers stable, but his last couple of races have definitely been steps in the right direction, particularly the last race where he made this big, wide, far-turn move to get into contention, flattened out a little bit at the end, but it was the best race this horse has run in quite a while.
Yeah, his last 2 starts are both pretty good. The last one in particular was good. I mean, boy, did he make a big run in there, and it seemed like he had all the momentum there in mid-stretch. And then just sort of flattened out a little bit. Trips are really, really important to this horse, but he might have some pace to run at here. I thought he was far from impossible at a good price.
The number 3 is Curbstone, is going to be a very big price in this race, and just trying to get back into form. They've tried different surfaces with him recently. 4 of his last 5 starts have come on the turf. Personally, I don't view him as much of a turf horse. I think he's better on the dirt, but feels like some of his better performances have come now over a year ago, and just feels like he would need to get back to form that we had seen for him a while back to even be remotely competitive here. And even then, he's a little bit of a stretch in this race.
I agree. I'm a fan of his, and I agree with you. I think he's just a way better dirt horse. This race is probably going to wind up being a little too tough for him. I do think he's underrated, David, and he's got the right running style for this race because he's very adaptable. You can do anything with this horse, and occasionally he'll show up and run a big one. It just seems like it's going to be really hard for him to beat this field.
We mentioned the pace scenario for the number 4, Phileas Fogg, who feels like he's going to be under the gun from the inside post trying to make the lead. That's his gig. He goes to the lead and tries to take them as far as he can. He did get the mile and an eighth distance two back at Saratoga, but that was an off the turf race where his main rival just completely failed to show up that day and felt like the track was maybe getting a little speed favoring late in that Whitney Day card. Also got a track that was kind of front runners last time out at Aqueduct. And as you were noting when we were talking about the pace projector, just haven't seen him in a few months. Gustavo Rodriguez and our colleague Dave Gredding's race advance did note that this horse had a throat issue coming out of his last race, so don't like to hear that. And I just kind of wonder where he is and if we're going to see his A effort in here.
Yeah, that's the thing that we have to concern yourself with. This is that most recent start though, and he was really good in this race. He was super sharp. He was never giving this field a chance through the stretch, and this was a really solid allowance field too. He was just much the best in here. I don't like the layoff. I wonder, if he's going to be as effective stretching out against a better field as well.
Yeah, he was facing a good field last time. Rocket Can, who's the runner-up here, has since come back to win the Grade 3 Harlan's Holiday. The third-place finisher, full screen, earned a 99 buyer 2 starts later at Oaklawn Park. So a good company, but we'll see if Phileas Fogg can run back to that form. The number 5, Quality Chic, actually also competed in a Queens County that was run in 2023. They actually ran the race twice last year with January and December, nearly a year apart. He ran a big race that day. That was a tough field. He was right there on the wire with Krupe. Was wide every step of the way. That was kind of the apex of his form. Was he was in the David Jacobson barn back at that time. Certainly tailed off for Jacobson into the middle to latter part of this year, but got claimed for 50,000 two back by trainer Jason Cook, who stepped him right back up into stakes company last time, and he ran fine at a big price behind some good horses at Churchill Downs. Now stretching back out to the mile and an eighth. We know we can get the distance, and he's got that back form that says maybe he could compete with these.
Yeah, all those things are true. I mean, listen, it's not easy to claim off of Jacobson and get these horses to keep their form. So we'll see if this horse is able to do it. But you're right, David. When he ran really well in this race in that December of 23, he was in great form at that time. And I don't know if he's in that form now. He did run okay last time. I just thought he got a really, really good trip and ride in that race and never looked like he was going to win, but he did fine to finish third in there.
The number 6 is Repo Rocks, trying to find the stellar form that he was in back in early 2023 for Jamie Ness when he was reeling off huge triple-digit buyers, and clearly has gone south since then. But he's run in some races the last couple of times where he's faced decent fields, particularly the last race. He's taking the biggest class drop of any of these coming out of that Grade 2 Cigar Mile, which could have been a Grade 1 this year, given the horses that signed up for it. And I didn't think he got an ideal trip in either of his last 2 races. You go back to the 49er, he was rated in the pocket early and then just could never get out of there. He was stuck inside behind horses for the entire stretch drive. And then last time out in the Cigar Mile was rating along the inside. It was a race that featured much more of an outside flow. Horses like Bookham Dano and Repo Rocks just kind of got shuffled out of position around the far turn. And he wasn't really making up ground at the end, but he was at least staying on in a race that was starting to fall apart in the late stages. The big question for him is the distance. He's never gone this far before. I thought he ran pretty well going the 2-turn mile at Parks 3 back in the Parks Dirt Mile. So he's got to get the distance, but watching him run, he's got this big rangy stride to him. He's always kind of struck me as a horse that would have the capacity to get more distance. And now they're going to try it at a race where he might be a fair price.
Yeah, it should be a good price. I'll be honest, I have no idea what to do with him in here because you're right. I mean, obviously, that he's got a race in him. It's going to make him really tough in here if he can run it, and if he can, particularly if he can run it going this distance, which is a real question for him. I'm sort of with you on the last 2 races. I don't know what to do with him. I thought maybe because he got hooked in the duel at Parks there, and maybe they felt like he paid the price and they overcorrected in the 49. I thought they rated him a little bit too strongly in that race, and it cost him. Last time, I don't know what to make of a Cigar Mile, to be honest. I just didn't think he was winning that race anyway. So I didn't want to give him a trip excuse, but you are correct that he was still running on at the end of that race after he sort of lost all position around the turn.
The number 7 is the horse to beat, Law Professor. We'll take a look at his most recent start when he got back to the winner's circle in his return to Aqueduct, winning this high-level optional claimer over today's rival Tabawatch and just gutting it out with Ben Duke between those two in second. when you start to pick apart his form, as you were alluding to earlier, Mike, he looks inconsistent at first glance, but then you cross out all the races that aren't an Aqueduct, and he suddenly becomes a very consistent horse because he just runs races at this track that are better than he produces anywhere else. I'm not a big proponent of that horse for course angle, but he's a real argument for it because he just seems to really elevate his game at this venue.
Yeah, he really does. It's kind of amazing when you start picking through his PPs. He's just, listen, his good race is really good. The distance is no issue. He does love this track, and he just gets one good trip after another in his races. He's one of the horses in here. It just sort of feels like he's not going to be compromised by pace. And I just really liked his return last time to go 9 furlongs off the layoff against the good field. He got a really good trip in that race, I thought, but I also thought he ran very well.
The number 8, Unlimited Potential, has been a visually impressive winner of 2 of his last 3 starts, but they're both at vastly lower levels than this one, winning a non-winners of 2 lifetime $16,000 claimer at Saratoga, and then last time beating slightly tougher than that, a starter allowance race, but still, this is a huge step up in class now to open stakes company, and he's another horse that has early speed that's got a tangle with Phileas Fogg on the front end and maybe others. Seems like this horse is facing a pretty tall order.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I still feel like this could be a pretty good claim for these connections, but he's hard to like in this race.
Number 9, Film Star, actually snuck in a race since he was entered in the Queens County because they took entries for this race, I think, almost 2 weeks ago at this point. And since then, he ran in the Robert T. Manfuso at Laurel and actually won that race. And we'll take a look at that replay as he's going to gut it out over Speedy Nest. And a game victory here. Got a pretty flashy 96 buyer for this race. When I look at the past performances of some of these horses, when I go into my formulator PPs and look up the also rans in this field, I question the validity of that number a little bit. The few horses in this race got career tops, and this is kind of the evidence that Film Star has gotten back to his better form from past seasons because he's been a little bit disappointing so far in 2024.
Yeah, he has. This was a fine performance here. We'll see if Linda is actually going to wheel him back here and start him in this race. She tends to do that. So we'll see. I thought he ran pretty well in there, David, but I also just felt like he got, an unbelievably good ride from Jose Lascano because that horse that he was on the pace with Speediness, he's a little distance challenged. And that's the kind of horse you don't just want to let him get loose on the lead and sort of back things down. And Lascano never let that horse do that. He just sort of made that horse go an honest pace all the way around there and was able to gun him down late.
Yeah, and I wonder what kind of trip is coming for a horse that also wants to be forward and is drawn outside of those other speeds. The number 10 is Surface to Air, and I've become a fan of this horse. He's just an overachiever. He runs well in prices on a number of occasions. I thought was unjustifiably taken down last time in that Claiming Crown at Churchill, where he did veer in the stretch, and just the nature of the Category 2 rules. He fouled a horse that maybe would have finished third and got placed behind that runner. But still, he's run well in each of the last couple of starts. I'm not really worried about distance with him. It's just a matter of the class level and whether this is just a little bit too tough for him.
Yeah, he just always outruns his odds. So I'm not going to sit here and knock this horse. He's one of the horses in here, though. You do have to, these horses can't run with laces in these stakes races. He's one of them that he's going to have to prove that he can do it because even as good a form as he's been in all year long, the 2 races where they tried to step him up into stakes company and run him without Lasix, he was nowhere.
Now, on the far outside, we've got the number 11 Tabawatch going out for the Brad Cox bar. He was in that replay that we showed for Law Professor, staying on pretty well to be third. That was 2 starts back in his past performances, and he came back at that same high-level allowance condition and got the job done in a narrow victory by a nose over Win It and Instant Coffee, who's also in here. But definitely, at least put together back-to-back good efforts, which have been a bit of a problem for him in the past. He's a horse that always looks like he's got a little more to give and can't quite get over the hump. So good to see him finally get that victory last time, coming in good form, but he's got a tough post position to overcome in here.
Yeah, he does. My take on him was similar to yours. I thought he was a little bit of a disappointment, sort of end of last year, earlier this year. He was running well, but I was never really sold on him. I couldn't really make a lot of excuses for his losses. I kind of feel like maybe there's a chance he's turned the corner here in his most recent starts, in particular the race 2 back behind Law Professor. I just thought he ran sneaky good in that race. They rated him. That pace was slow in front of him. It got progressively faster. But this horse never lost any ground through this. He was finishing right up with Law Professor in there. And then, of course, they cut him back last time. And I know he only won by a nose, but I just thought that was another good performance. He seems like he might be in the best form of his career right now. Maybe he's a fair price. We'll see if he gets a trip from the outside post.
Let's take a look at our top picks in the Queens County. And Mike, you're going to go with the number 11 Tabawatch on top, who we were just discussing. Does have to overcome that post, but I agree with you. He is in very good form coming into this race.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a shot with him in here. I'm not, way against Law Professor, but I didn't feel like I necessarily had to bet him at some kind of short price in there because I think he's good. I think he is the horse to beat, but this race in a lot of ways goes beyond him. I thought there were a lot of different horses you could make cases for in here.
Yeah, the more I looked at Law Professor's last race, it makes him the horse to beat, but I don't know how short a price I'd want to take on him because he didn't run that much better than Tabawatch and Instant Coffee. And I just thought the two interesting price horses for me were the number 5 Quality Chic, who might be coming back around, and Repo Rocks, just coming out of that ultra tough Cigar Mile, and I think has run a little better than it looks in the last couple of races. We'll see if he can get the distance. He should be the right price for me to find out. So the number 6 Repo Rocks for me, and the number 11 Tabawatch for Mike in the DRF Sunday race of the day, the Queens County. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.